she cracked her neck or something like that.
Spike TV was great, man. I remember SNL did it. What Spike TV's version, a BBC series Downton Abbey would look like. I was talking about the sisters, like, and the sisters are hot, very hot, and the other one.
That's Spike TV.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of intelligence, would you rather have it that reading books makes you stupid? The bigger the book, the more stupid you'll become. Or admitting emotions will make you shorter and shorter, 1 inch at a time.
Yeah, those are hard choices to make, but on that, I would have to say...
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 1000 Crazy Questions, the podcast. I'm your currently sane host, Houston Pierce. This is a podcast where we have on at least one guest a week and ask some series of crazy would you rather questions. We get into the psyche of our guests, explore topics and questions that maybe should not have been explored.
All right. With us this week, we have the Renaissance person. He's kind of blending art, technology, communication service. He is a complicated classic pianist, New Yorker, stops in Boston every Seattle now and then with a unique flavor, his own life story. Yeah, like I said, complicated. Chris McNulty.
Houston, thanks for having me on the podcast. Yeah, I like to say complicated because if you look at the different threads of my life, there is one thread which is very professional. I've spent a lot of my career focusing on product development and marketing for some of the world's largest technology companies like Dell and Microsoft. On the other hand, I have a pretty diverse life that involves travel, songwriting, photography, and just a lot of places that things do not intersect. Sometimes people are surprised in my professional life when I say, well, my first job out of college, I was a grade school music teacher for a year. They're like, really? And occasionally those worlds collide, which is always fascinating to have, my friends from my technology world meet my friends from the sports world or the music world and discover that they all have exactly the same impression of me, which isn't always positive.
Well, that means you have just more pieces to reflect who you are, right? Because everyone sees who you are, has a version of what they see. And then if you put those together, it gets you a closer vision of what you
and it is a privilege. Like my professional career has given me the chance to travel around the world, speaking to audiences about technology, to write books, to come on podcasts, develop my own. And it also gives me like an eagerness to return home here to the Pacific Northwest, between the mountains and the ocean, where we get to spend a lot of time with our dogs, with my partner, Michelle, and, my 3 kids. So it's just, I am incredibly fortunate. And I say that it's complicated because fortune is complicated. And I love being surprised by whatever's going to come next.
You're on the perfect show for that. Quick question. I'm sure you get this all the time, but what is your favorite place to, travel, visit?
I have to say one of my favorite places is London. I've been to London probably close to 100 times. And so it's incredibly familiar to me to not have to look up when you're on the tube to get from one place to another, or being able to compile my list of travel tips, one of which, when I have friends who are going to London for the first time, I'm like, don't do this tourist thing, don't do that tourist thing. And I will share one, which is to go the embankment station, not embankment, but as close to it, where the tour boats leave on the Thames, near what you would think of as an American as Big Ben, where Parliament is. That river cruise that goes all the way down to Greenwich, where the Cutty Sark is, and back, is a great way to see the city. The hosts are incredibly funny. They never take themselves seriously. And you'll see even more of the city than you would see when you're just on a bus driving around. So that's one of my travel tips for people who are going first to London. But thanks for asking.
That's awesome. Not to get into my story of London, because I've only been to London once, and it was not a good story. I actually kind of hate London.
It's funny enough.
Sorry, I feel bad saying this, just crapping all over the place you said you love. It was a bad experience, though, because I was already studying abroad in Spain for school. And, while you're over there, it's kind of easy to jump from place to place. So I was going to go to London. I was going to go with a friend of mine, but some life emergency ended up happening to her, so she had to run back to the States, and it was just me. I dragged my feet on finding a hostel, so I had to find one within a day. Essentially, found a really cheap one. I went there and didn't have a lot of money because I was already using euros, which did not translate well to pounds. And it was just me in the city. I think I had the hostel for one night. And then when I tried leaving the next day, my train actually left. And for some reason, I was stuck in I was stuck in downtown London essentially, and I couldn't get to the far off airport because I wasn't using Hawthorne. I can't remember the main airport in London. It was
Heathrow.
Heathrow. Thank you. It was the other
probably
one.
Flying out of Gatwick.
Maybe.
Or City Airport. There's a couple of airports.
Yeah, I forgot the name, but it was a bit far out. So I had to ask my family to wire me money from the other end, and I couldn't go to sleep that night. I was effectively homeless for a night in London. It was a whole thing. And I had to go to the local pub, and I had only maybe 20 pounds, if that, on me. It was bad. It was just...
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but if that ever happens to you again, just now that you know me, just reach out and I'll see what I can do with my network that lives in London. I could also talk at great length about Iceland, which I think is wonderful and amazing, or Australia, but we're not here to give Chris McNulty's travel tips for the world. We're here for something I believe that's called 1,000 Crazy Questions.
We are here for that. I just wanted to, just get you in your comfort zone for a little bit. I didn't want to try to shock people, but since you mentioned it, listeners, here are the rules of the game. There are 2 rules to this game/conversation. Rule number 1, you must always answer the question no matter what. If you honestly have no preference towards one or the other, you say the phrase, flip a coin, and we move on. Rule number 2, whoever asks the question doesn't have to answer it if they choose not to. These rules exist because as questions become harder to answer, these rules become harder to follow. This episode, we have a Blue Band episode. So it'll be PG, family friendly, and everyone can listen to this. If you want to listen to a raunchier version of this podcast, go check out the Red episodes. Just as insightful, funny, and fascinating, I swear. Otherwise, stay right here. And yeah, everyone can listen to this one. Quickly before we begin, Chris, this is a hypothetical conversation, everything. You're never interrupting. You always interrupt me, throw questions back at me. You're free to. Yeah.
I like to say because I'm originally from the East Coast. If I feel like I'm being interrupted or vice versa, you're not throwing me off my game. I'll just feel like I'm home. Because in my family growing up, everyone's always talking.
That's a good quick one for disclaimers to the listeners. Everything is hypothetical. If you're offended by this episode, at me or not, I don't know. I may answer, I may not answer. It depends on how I feel about it. But it's, everything's hypothetical. I say it every week, but every week it's true. Everything we discuss is conversational or for funny and, things like that. Lastly, before we begin, Chris, is there anything you'd like to ask or declare? Are there any inherent judgmental biases you may have?
I'm sure that I have some, and I try to be mindful of unconscious biases, but I'm in a good place. I'm well rested. We had snow here in the Seattle area, which is wonderful for me, being originally from the Northeast. My driveway is ready to roll, so I am all yours.
Let's go. First hard-hitting question. Would you rather be a bodybuilder or be a professional yoga master?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And if you'd asked me 10 or 20 years ago, I probably would have said bodybuilder, but I would tend more to yoga master because, I was much more intense when I was younger. And as I've progressed in my career, the need to have balance and the need to be able to be thoughtful and contemplative is something I really enjoy. I need to be able to recharge with that ebb and flow. And without being a bodybuilder, I've managed to be fairly active and healthy. So yeah, I'd go for professional yoga instructor.
Would you actually instruct or would you just go for that yoga master body that you...
Well, I wasn't even thinking about the physical benefits of it. I think that would just come. No, I just love to know more about it. And by my nature, as I were chatting before, my first job out of college was a school teacher. And I love being able to have joy in something and spark that enthusiasm in someone else. So if I knew what I was doing, of course, I would love to teach it. If you asked me to teach yoga right now, I would say get on the floor and roll or something.
Yeah, you could do it. It looks easy enough.
Right.
Yeah. Personally, I don't know how to approach this question. I mean, bodybuilders aren't exactly ideal to me. I want to be in shape, but I don't want my body like that. I mean, it just seems like a lot. Personally, this sounds like an excuse. I think a lot of guys say this I don't use that much muscle, but there's a difference between being in shape and being a bodybuilder. So, yeah.
Yeah. One of my son is kind of a gym rat, and he follows a lot of folks who are bodybuilders online. And there's one guy he thinks is incredibly funny. It's expletive laced, and we're on PG, so I'm not going to quote it fully, but it's a guy who's just screaming, if you're not in the right shape, it's because you're not working hard enough. You need to eat 8 to 10 meals a day. And if you can't do that, you're wasting my time. And I asked Nate, well, what is this guy doing right now? And he's like, well, he died. So don't take healthcare tips from someone who tells you your problem is you're not eating 10 dinners a day.
I drank at the wrong time. What's that guy's name? There are some like famous bodybuilder comedians out there. And maybe is he still kind of floating around, or how soon did he die?
There's a few years ago. I don't keep tabs on it as closely because I usually overhear it when I'm driving him to work and he's got like some TikTok or Instagram reel going, or YouTube. Do people still use YouTube? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I overhear it. But for the sake of the other drivers on the road, I'm not staring over to see what's there in his lap. I think yoga doesn't kill as many people. Let's just say.
As far as you know.
As far as we know.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go to this. Okay. I'm sorry. That reminded me of something real quick to go on a tangent. Do you remember the show 1,000 Ways to Die? It was like in the early 2000s. It was, what network was it on?
I remember hearing of it, but I've never watched it.
I think it was on Spike TV, something like that.
Wasn't it like based on the Darwin Awards?
No, but it was it's kind of like that. It focused on, I don't want to say stupid people because it sounds disrespectful, but it would focus on people who died in very fascinating or dumb ways. And full disclosure, I actually took a piece of my name of the show from that show because I watched it as kind of a kid, 1,000 Ways to Die, 1,000 Ways. So, but anyway, I'll
ask you a question, which is really a chance for me to talk.
Sure.
Do you remember the very first Darwin Award ever given in that whole history?
No, sorry.
It was for someone, and this is a wonderful and terrible way to die, who wondered what would happen if you got a rocket assist for jet engine takeoff and strapped it to the top of a Pinto to see how fast the Pinto would go. And the answer is the Pinto will reach about 350 miles an hour airborne and go straight into a cliff.
It happened? Did someone test this?
That happened, yes.
Wow. I mean, it's stupid, but you have to applaud that. I mean, someone has to, wow, they did it. It happened. I have to give credit to that happened.
You're going out in the blaze of glory.
Yeah, it happened. No, I haven't seen the Darwin Awards. I've only heard of it. I haven't seen them. So yeah, but that's close to what this show was about. That's what it did. There's this one episode where there's this yoga master and she falls down the stairs while she's in a pretzel position. That's why I brought it up. And like she ends up dying. To make it weird or to make it funny, because it wasn't funny, it was kind of tragic. They kind of she had bad flatulence the whole time. Like they kept making her fart in people's faces and stuff like that. It was a weirdly weird show. It was kind of immature. It's like, this woman, she did nothing wrong really, but to get the audience to she made the wrong position and fell down some stairs, but to get the audience to laugh, they made her have terrible flatulence and then she put herself on a pretzel and she fell. Like she cracked her neck or something like that.
Spike TV was great, man. I remember SNL did what Spike TV's version of the BBC series Downton Abbey would look like. And I was talking about the sisters, and the sisters are hot, very hot, and the other one.
That's Spike TV.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of intelligence, would you rather have it that reading books makes you stupid? The bigger the book, the more stupid you'll become. Like the better the book, the more information it has, I guess. Or admitting emotions will make you shorter and shorter, 1 inch at a time. So if anything like, oh, I'm happy, zoop, I love you, zoop.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, those are hard choices to make. But on that, I would have to say I would give up reading books, which is giving up a joy. But, I have a master's degree. I'm fairly well read, fairly well educated. Mm-hmm. There's a technicality. I could probably what about ebooks? I don't know. I'm sure you're covering all written things. Right?
I'm just reading.
Let's put all that there. Yeah. I think to be genuine and authentic is about expressing your emotions. And it's something as a middle-aged man, generations have conditioned us not to express emotions, but I think it's important to do that. I would really not be an authentic person if I pretended I had no feelings. It would be really difficult. And I'd wind up being tiny. I was just, telling my son last night. My son is home on a break from college for a couple months. He's starting back in April. He's 21, in his junior year. And I explained to him like something I think my father would have had a hard time saying because he was very proper about these things. So it's like, Nate, I do not take for granted the months I get to spend with you just having dinner or picking you up at work or complaining about the Kansas City Chiefs on my couch, because you're going to go on and have a wonderful life and you're going to professional success and travel and living and moving. I don't take this time for granted, but I don't want you trapped here. Like, it's wonderful, but if you're still on my couch in 10 years, something has gone wrong. And I think telling people that you love them is so important in this world. So yeah, I'd sadly give up books. And see, I'd say it was sad, and that would be an emotion, and otherwise I'd be in trouble.
There it is. You shrunk right there. Yeah. That was pretty good. Yeah. Do you have a favorite book while we're on subject?
The favorite book is going to shift over time. The one that I'm most of the way through right now, which I'm finding astonishing, is the complete short stories of Flannery O'Connor. And I was triggered by that because I've been in a much more productive, creative mood of late. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but like years ago, Bruce Springsteen kicked off the whole DIY movement in music because he was already like a star, but he spent like a long Christmas week with his parents in the house. And every night he went up to his room and he would write a song on guitar and record it into a tape recorder. And so eventually they figured out, they wrote some great material and he took it into the studio and the band just like, it didn't work in full band arrangements. And at some point it dawned on him, everyone around him, hey, this isn't the prep for the album. This like raw, poorly recorded thing is the album. And it's really stark and minimalist. And it's the reason why I'm mentioning this is sometimes to understand creativity, it's helpful to understand what the person consuming around that time. And there's been some coverage of this because there's going to be a biopic about Springsteen coming out later this year. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear is the cast of Springsteen. And so the coverage is that Springsteen, when I read about 2 months ago that, when Springsteen wrote this, he was reading a lot of Flannery O'Connor. I said, hey, I have not read her other than a few required short stories years ago. So I just went back and picked it up, and it's dark, it's haunting, and it's really beautiful in how spare it is. Yeah, that's really been something that's been hard for me to shake this month.
Whoa, okay, yeah. I think you've recommended this to me. The short stories of Flannery O'Connor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she died young. She died in 1960 sometime. She was only 40. She was sick, but based in Georgia, deeply spiritual person, and was writing in and of the time. So the language sometimes uses words that we don't use in polite society these days, but that kind of was the Deep South in the 1950s.
Gotcha. I look into that. Yeah. I like to read, but I haven't read anything in a while, like read anything in a while. Yeah. Mostly a movies and film guy, but I like to read, especially fiction. I think learning about history is very digestible, like in a video platform to me. I can't bring myself to read like nonfiction. I don't know. Unless it's current news, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. Well, we'll answer it though. Speaking of history, would you rather wake up tomorrow and spend a full 3 days in the past as your 10-year-old self, or have a well-detailed report of everyone in your life's opinion on how they currently feel and think about you? It'll be brutally honest, and the report will self-destruct once you've read everything from everybody.
Well, that's simple for me. I would do the 10-year-old thing.
Okay.
Would not, apart from the easy thing, like I would go back and tell my 10-year-old self, hey, once you have some money, I want you to bet on this. Place these bets right now, and like they'll pay off. Yeah, we're not going to do that. That's a unique opportunity. Like, and I respect the premise of the second question, like getting that candid feedback in a way that's hard to generate. There's advantages to that, but if I do my homework, and as we were talking before, the emotional honesty, the emotional vulnerability to go through those learnings, you can get a sense of kind of where you are. It'll be imperfect, but that's possible. However, the chance to revisit the world through the eyes of a 10-year-old, to get that perspective, just to see it through my old eyes, we could debate how much that perspective comes forward with me. Do I bring my current self back to that? And I get to observe what I was like, what my brothers and sisters were like, my parents were like. That's unique. There's no other way to do that. So I don't know what I would learn and discover, but I'm certain I would come away from that profoundly changed for the better.
Yeah, well said. And I think I agree with you, by the way. To answer this myself, I would pick the same one you picked. Slightly different reason, though. I think the report, while good for me in an ultimate sense of, you get to kind of see what everyone thinks about you and change accordingly, or if there's things that maybe they see about you that you don't see. It's also, I don't know, I'm someone who can be, I don't want to say neurotic, but knowing what everyone thinks is kind of freaky to me. Like they're not telling me for a reason. And what they do tell me, I want to know. At least the close loved ones in my life, I can ask them, what do you think about this? And they'll give me an answer. Knowing complete brute honesty may not be entirely healthy, at least not for me. So I'd actually pass on that. And the other one, spending 3 days as a 10-year-old, it's invaluable. It's literally, there's nothing I can do. I can ask people, what do you think about me? No, be honest. I can get that sort of to an extent, but this, 3 days in the past. Yeah.
The other thing about that report, I think to be genuine, like, I've chatted about this before. Like I've had enough family members who drink in their lives. I've gone to Al-Anon meetings, which is for friends and family of people with drinking issues. And one of the things you'll hear in those meetings, it's about like, if you've been a people pleaser and you decide to change that, people will not be pleased. And it's really hard to live your life like trying to conform to the expectations and demands of what everyone else thinks. What someone else thinks is none of my business. Like, fundamentally, I think in this life, we have to be our authentic selves, and we have to be honest about who we're doing. And like the people who are going to love us, you deserve to be loved, warts and all, instead of the exhaustion of trying to edit yourself to this, which is not to say there aren't great pieces of learning you can get when someone says, hey, do you know, like when you call me to have a discussion and like you don't arrange, like I feel like a lot of pressure on me and you really do it. And I know you think well of it, but it really, stuff like that, when you hear it, yeah, there's a learning that's there about some of those impacts. But I think living your life solely by other people's thoughts of you is just exhausting. I don't know if that's been your experience, but
it can be. I'm not too much of a people pleaser, and I say too much of because I can be. Sure. But it depends on what arena I'm in. If I'm around friends, I can sort of be that. If I'm around family, I'm a bit more blunt. But if there's a mixture, I don't know. People kind of change. Yeah.
Like in my professional world, so I'm a principal at Synerger. Synerger is like a boutique management consulting firm. We go in and we try to transform the culture for how people set strategy and set decisions. And there are a couple people at clients who, they want to be told what they want to hear. And that's not really our job. Our job is also to be equally honest with them and not be worried if someone doesn't like a piece of advice. We have to call it as we see it. And when you're genuine, you're authentic, it's just easier to know. And sometimes I don't need to know everything about myself. It's okay to forget certain things.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that one. So speaking of getting to know yourself, to move on a little bit.
Sure.
What Greek god would you want to be your parent if you could pick one? Not a would you rather question, just open-ended.
Yeah, it's a great one. Well, and I'm not deep on Greek antiquity.
Sure, give us the lore.
But Zeus's parenthood was problematic. I mean, if Zeus is your parent, it could mean I'm Hercules, which sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. I'll caveat here. Well, okay, pick one god. So don't pick two, please.
I'm going to pick one to have as a parent, and it would be...
You can have the human, the mortal. It could be a mother or father, whatever, but just pick one.
I'm going to pick Venus, because I think that understanding the female perspective in love is... With her embodying that, I think there would be just great lessons for me as a male in this world. I don't lack for masculinity. So getting that insight, I think, would be helpful.
Okay. That's a smart answer. Okay. That's pretty good. You said Venus?
Yeah.
Isn't that okay? Maybe people shoot me down if I'm wrong, and I don't know if I'm wrong here, but isn't that a Roman god? I think the Roman gods are the ones the planets are named after.
Right. Mars. They're analogs, right? There's Zeus and Jupiter, and
you got Zeus's wife's name is it
Hera.
Hera is the one with like fertility and whatever. So you want Hera, I guess. Same thing.
Yeah,
it's his sister.
I'm going to have to go with it, even though I know Hera sort of is the genesis of like Lady Macbeth in literature, and like, really that was a tumultuous relationship that she had with Zeus. But that happens when the father can appear as an animal form and seduce women and all that.
Yeah, Zeus sucks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as a person and definitely as a father, I think Zeus I think he sucks.
Yeah, I mean, Zeus sort of gives you Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Kurt Russell's character is, as Chris Pratt's dad. Like, I went all around the galaxy, this, that, and that. You're my special son, along with the other 1,000, and you'll either join me or I'll kill you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's
only 12. There's only 12 stories.
Oh yeah. I forgot, who has that quote? There's only 12 stories.
I did.
Yes, of course. Chris McNulty.
I don't know that first.
That's right. Good answer, though. Good answer. I don't know. I think I picked Poseidon. Simply because water powers. I can't swim very well, and I don't know. Seems like I take it. I'll just take it. Or Apollo.
Yeah, I already gave the answer. But yeah, I mean, I grew up near the ocean. I live near an ocean. I love the ocean. I love to photograph the ocean. That would have been a better answer, but I didn't give it. So thanks for playing, Chris.
Well, sorry, dude. Next question. How soon do you think AI will become creative, in your opinion? Like before it becomes like indistinguishable, I should say, from AI creating something to a human creating something.
So, this is a topic actually in my professional world I write about. There's two things that are you're commingling there. One is artificial general intelligence, self-awareness, which people have been expecting for AI for decades. We're a lot closer than ever before. All bets are off as to when we get there. But in terms of creativity, I was talking to a friend of mine last week who's a lecturer, a PhD at Columbia in New York, who's a specialist in AI and knowledge management. We were talking about does AI improve or kill human creativity? And it really comes down to kind of your view of just what's the nature of humanity. I think AI at its best can be a great boon to productivity. And the example I'll give you is, at Synerger, we do some agency work, which is like helping define brand identities for other companies, sometimes for ourselves. And our head of creative and experience said to me, hey, I think we need a mnemonic, which is sort of an audio signature that represents the firm. Because he's discovered recently that I have a digital recorder. I do things on the side. And he said this to me while I was on a long train trip on the East Coast last week, New York and back. So obviously I'm not set up to do a recording. So I was thinking about it. And I know what the sound needs to be. It needs to begin with a swoosh and then rising string crescendo with a little bit of sparkles that resolve into a single clear bell tone. Because Synerger's name is derived from the Greek Synerger, representing the North Star. So we have a lot of North Star imagery and all the rest. So I'm trying to suggest that chaos and speed resolving into something. But I had nothing to record it with. So I was playing around with some AI sound generators. And I would tell it things like, it needs to be 5 seconds long. It needs to, I don't want any percussion. I don't want any piano. And the thing is, the things that AI does, if you're in a dialogue with it, it can make you convinced that either what you're doing is right or suggest something else. So to approach AI can create. I don't know if you're familiar with Notebook LM from Google.
I don't think so.
So Notebook LM is this really cool tool that Google has put out where you can upload a set of documents or transcripts or things you have in Workspace or PDFs, and then it will learn about those and you can ask it questions. And one of the things that you can ask it to do is to make a podcast for you. So let's say, you could take the transcript of this, upload it, and 2 minutes later you would have The Deep Dive, which is a non-existent man and woman talking about everything that we're talking about. And it's not perfect. It gets some things wrong. In tone, if you feed it a bad news story about some people dying, it still will sometimes go hey, we read the story about people dying. So it doesn't really get emotional tone right. But I've used it sometimes when I'm going to be on a fairly lengthy car trip. If I know I'm going to be in the car for an hour and I want to be creative, but I don't want... I'm not going to read. What's interesting is, so it will comb through a bunch of meeting notes and it will generate for me a 11-minute dialogue. And sometimes it comes up with metaphors that haven't occurred to me. So one about AI, using AI to analyze AI. And this fake podcast by people who don't exist was they started charting the evolution of a bakery. As they started with AI and then like what it can teach them about their suppliers and how they can go into the marketplaces and how they can expand. It was a really interesting metaphor. And what I had fed into it was some third-party research along with a white paper I'd written. And it was just, so I do think AI can be creative. I think it does work best with text. And we've all seen the, six-fingered, three-legged people that, OpenAI can generate for us. So doesn't get it right, but it is creative. I think AI being creative is here today. AI being Skynet is not here yet. And I think we're years away from it.
How long into you would say AI is a Mozart? Or are you saying it's kind of already there?
What did you say? AI is a what?
Like a Mozart. Sort of an undeniable, creative, artistically creative. It's especially artistically creative, like force to be reckoned with.
Gosh, independently without human steering, I think you're at least 10 years away. So the example I'll give is there was a commercial that made the rounds last year called Volvo for Life. And if you look it up, you can see it. It's on YouTube. It's a car commercial. And you look at it and you see someone who's like driving an old car which transforms into a Volvo. And as it goes through the city, the whole city starts to sprout in trees and leaves and flowers, and the sun comes out. And they're talking about the green initiatives that Volvo is bringing with their electric cars. And people looked at it and said, this was generated by AI, and it was amazing. And it is true. It was generated by Volvo's ad agency, who had 10 million items in there. They already had the repertoire of all of their brand marks, all their preferred pictures. They know their preferred language. So they're starting with all of that. And they didn't just say, give me a commercial about Volvo. They did extensive prompting to build a series of 5-second vignettes, which they then decided which of them were best. They brought them into Adobe. They edited them. They added the soundtrack. So AI is not creating. AI can accelerate human creativity, but it can't replace it yet. And I think, I'm not sure how much longer we're going to get there, but if quantum computing gets hooked up with it, then I think you'll see the pure compute power that you would need to just statistically, eventually it'll generate something wonderful. But until then, there is no substitute for feeling, judgment, and intuition, which are essential to creativity.
That was a pretty good deep dive on the subject. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Thanks.
So when that happens, or I'm saying it's inevitable, but do you think it's a bad thing? Like if AI does become honestly good at creating, or is it kind of like we can co-live with it?
I think we can live with it because then you can employ creativity to things that you wouldn't do otherwise. I'm a good photographer. I'm not visually gifted for drawing things. Even my stick figures, people have a hard time figuring out. So I would never engage a graphic designer to get ready for a meeting otherwise. But if I can get my concept and rely on AI to augment my creativity, it's doing something that never would have happened in the first place. It's not a matter of frankly, I don't have time. It would take me a month to hand draw the right drawing. Either it wouldn't exist or it would be terrible. So I think it's that sort of stuff that's helpful. But it's an area, I think we need to be mindful of it. Like I do get questioning about like what the next generation, we're relying on it. It's like we have been even before ChatGPT, because you will take Google Maps or Waze and you'll look at it and it will look at current conditions and use AI to recommend a better route. Even if you've always driven this way for 10 years to your house, it'll say you need to go that way. People are starting to lose the ability to read a map and to navigate themselves because they're just, I'll put the address in, it'll tell me where to go. And once autonomous vehicles come in, people will say, go to Starbucks. They'll have no idea what's between their home and Starbucks. And so we are approaching a place where the ability to be creative about getting yourself somewhere by driving is going to feel as exotic as people who say that they can ride a horse today. Can you ride a horse, Houston?
I can't ride a horse. No. You found my weakness. No. But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. It's something like that. I don't even remember phone numbers. I mean, I know people before me, generation before is like, yeah, you remember phone numbers, but now it's all in your phone. There's no need to store numbers. I remember a couple, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My kids, two of my kids have phone numbers that are very similar to each other. I can't remember which is which. Yeah. And my daughter gets offended. Like, how can you not remember 291-9926? I'm like, instead of 291-927, like, I don't remember which of you has which number. Come on.
Yeah, just call both. Both will pick up.
There's a trick of memory, Bill. I don't understand it, and I haven't read about it. Maybe perhaps you have. So you mentioned that you travel. What's funny is when you were traveling, you will absolutely remember what room number in the hotel you're staying while you were there. But if I ask you a month after the fact, what was your room number in Dallas or wherever you were? Be like, I don't even remember what floor I was on. Our brain makes certain decisions about what to keep and what to chuck. I'm fascinated by that process. I don't know anything about it though.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely I don't even know why it does that, but it's definitely fascinating. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, not to ride the AI train too much, but speaking of kind of memory and everything like this,
yep.
Would you rather have your entire body replaced with cybernetic parts, except for your head, or have every single minute of your life be televised and you get paid for it, even the private moments?
Yeah.
All right, just want to continue.
So the second part is, if the audience is familiar, there was a movie in the late 90s starring Jim Carrey called The Truman Show, which was like at the dawn of reality TV. Like, hey, who would watch people in their everyday lives? And we've learned that it's fascinating to watch someone's fake everyday life. Thank you, Kardashians and all the rest. I don't know. I'm me. My body is not perfect.
Okay.
But I will take it. I would rather not give it up. And again, as we were saying before, I'm not perfect at it. I don't want the audience to think I've got some great philosophical life balance.
You're a yoga master.
But now I did say I wanted to learn it because I didn't have that.
Yeah, you're a demigod yoga master. I don't know what you're talking about, but continue.
Oh, I love this program. This is fantastic. What I would say is I wouldn't love it, but it would be a better trade-off than having to give up my body. I remember when I was younger, I had a really bad accident playing volleyball, of all things. Like, I was setting at the net. A friend of mine came over and I broke the head of my tibia into 6 pieces. And I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks. And I had to have plates put in my leg and a bone graft done from my hip. I remember the night before the surgery, just looking down at my leg, still swollen, and thinking, well, I'm going to have to give up the way that this is because they're going to put replacement parts in me. I didn't love that idea. Now, it sort of led me to be much more active in fitness and training and becoming a much better hiker and skier. So there were some benefits to it. But yeah, I'm me. And I would rather keep myself as me and do my best with having every moment televised, which sort of forces you to be who you are.
Wow. Okay. Well thought out. I mean, Not
a crazy question.
Some of them, I don't know. Okay, when I think of cyborg parts, I think of Cyborg from DC. I think of like a better man type version,
Cyborg or $6 million man.
Yeah.
I was watching stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That perk, and I mean, you're giving up your body, but you're trading it out and you're keeping your head. So, I mean, okay, I guess I just don't see this is my body, I can't give it up as much as you can. I see it, but I don't know if I have the same exact attachment.
Do you remember years ago, there was a player for the Boston Red Sox named Ted Williams. And when he died, he and the rest of his family arranged to have their bodies cryo-frozen.
Whoa, no, I missed this story somehow.
And there's people who do that. And I think that, like, you wonder if the company is going to stay alive in perpetuity, but, like, they're dealing with the dead, so you can't really get sued. But I think at the time, it's like, for $100,000, you can have your body permanently frozen in liquid nitrogen on the belief that at some point in the future, medical advances will make it possible to bring you back and revive you, and you'll be good. And if you don't have $100,000, don't hold me on the exact price, they have a different service for $25,000. They'll just freeze your head and get rid of the body because they figured that, hey, if they can cure cancer in 200 years, they can grow you a new body. And I just always felt like I'd never do that. Would you freeze your head for the rest of your life?
No. Oh God, no. I mean, but it's a fun concept to me. I don't doubt. I mean, I would. The thing is, I get why someone would. I don't think I have that much trust in humanity, and I have too much. Like, I don't think there's a good trade off for whatever future you're waking up into. You're probably not going to be yourself. You're probably going to be owned by some corporation or who knows what. I don't think that it's worth it. But I get for some people who just have that who go about life of, we're just in flesh bags. Nothing matters. Let's just, like, I'm going to freeze my head and wake up to a cooler life. Like, it was just kind of very flippant about it. I understand that thought because if that's how you live, that's how you, why not freeze your head?
Well, you're actually bringing up something like, if you go back to the early days of the Christian churches, I went to religious schools and study comparative religion. And so, like, I'm a somewhat religious person, and there's truth in everything, Buddhism to Hinduism, through Islam and Judaism and the rest. The early Christians couldn't decide if Jesus, if you believe him to be divine, was he God, like doing the Zeus thing, pretending to be a human for a few years, or was he somehow actually a human being? And I think to be human is a wonderful thing. And a lot of them, not all of them, even to this day, came down on the idea that, like, Jesus was God, but he was also a guy. Like, he got pissed off. He got interested in Mary Magdalene or what have you. He got hungry. He got lonely. And that's not just the body. He is as much a part of ourselves as our mind and our soul are. So it's not something I would give up lightly.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Mind, body, and soul is what they always say. And there's people always say, think from your gut. And whether you take that spiritually or figuratively or like literally, like because you have a gut biome that can sort of talk to your brain or whatever, there is something to your body does affect your attitude. It affects the way you see yourself, the way you interact with the world, what your tastes are in food and music and everything else. So that is a good point. But again, I'm not going to do that to my body. So, but in this question, I might do that to my body if it means replacing everything or being televised. I don't like being supervised like that or watched. Like we're on a show and, I'm doing a version of myself. I am myself, but this is like, it's different. We're presenting, but
but let me break it down for you. Like you already are. Like, last week it's, a lot of times this comes up with horrible stories like a crime or the plane crash in DC, or something came up on one of my social nets looking for anyone who has a ring cam of an accident that happened down the street from me a couple of weeks ago. We're already on television. We just don't realize it. And sometimes it's a little creepy. I was in New York for the past week, and between the ring cameras and what they have and all at the intersections, like, there is so much footage of me, and they do pattern matching. And if someone ever wanted to say, hey, whatever happened to Chris McNulty on this day, they could pretty quickly figure out, well, we saw him go in this store, and then 10 minutes later we saw him go there. And like, we're on television already, whether we like it or not.
I don't like it. I hate it.
Do you have I forget where you live. Do you have toll highways by you?
Yeah.
I remember the first time they came out with Easy Pass, the Northeast. And it was this choice because pulling it, on the Mass Pike, you would see this really long line of like 30 cars waiting to pay cash and someone zipping by in the left lane at 40 miles an hour. And I'm not a paranoid person or a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, if I get that Easy Pass, the government's going to know every time I drive through the toll booth. And I'm not doing anything wrong. There's nothing that's secretive about it. But like, why do people need to track that information in the first place? So I get the creepy factor, but I also, like said, but I hate sitting in traffic for 10 minutes. So let's go.
I get it. No, I completely get that mindset. There's some things I'm like, well, you're willing to trade privacy for efficiency. Sometimes, yeah, and it's always that trade-off. And I typically go for privacy, but sometimes, like I know when you hit accept on, do you want TikTok on your phone? Like, okay, sure, fine, bring it on. I guess some things I just been to, but yeah. Would you rather have a photographic memory or be able to program anything?
What do you mean program anything? You mean
like program anything on a computer? Like you can program a movie if you wanted to play. If you can program a transformer, you can program anything. Like you can pretty much make anything on a computer.
Yeah. I can do some programming. I've done more earlier in my career. Like I was actually at a 3-hour class last week building an AI agent to basically to look up. It was like looking up orders or letting a chat saying, hey, I need to change the order of the shipping. So I built stuff like that. I can code stuff as I'd like to learn more. And so the thing about a photographic, and so I'm really going to say, I've spent my career in technology. I'm going to pick the programming. And it's got to do with, I think there's a duality of memory and of intelligence. Do you know the author, Jorge Luis Borges?
Sorry, no.
South American writer, fantastic. And he wrote lots of things that were super clever. Like if he had an idea for a novel and he was also being lazy, didn't want to spend 3 years writing it, he would write a book review of the novel that he never wrote because it was a faster way to tell the same story, right? And he has a short story about a person who has a perfect photographic memory. And the problem is he is insane and he can't learn anything because every time you show him a plate, he remembers the weight, the color, the shape, the dimensions, and so forth. And he is so overwhelmed by those details, he can't obscure that they're circles or that they're plates. And like the essence of intelligence is being able to find the pattern and forget the rest. So a perfect photographic memory is actually the enemy of intelligence because there is wisdom in not knowing certain things or knowing what to discard. I don't need to remember. I still remember because I was there 2 days ago that I was on the 11th floor of my hotel in New York. What I need to remember is the people I met, the plays that I saw, the food that I ate, visiting my brother and sister's dog. But did this train stop 12 times on the way out or only 10? That's data. That's not information. And that's not knowledge. And so that kind of photography in the memory, don't want to.
Wow. That was I hate doing I don't like to say I'm speechless because that was really good. That was really good. I never thought about it that way. I mean, but can't you just not focus on those data points that don't matter? I mean, I feel like you can just forget about them. Or I don't know. Yeah.
But it's memory, photographic. It's still there. It's remembered. Like you're saying,
True.
You're saying like if you have selective photographic memory, sure, but that wasn't in the question.
No, it wasn't in the question. I didn't mean for it to be a curse, but no, I did not say it in the thing, in the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that was imaginative. And honestly, that was a really good spot, I think. Hey, everyone, thank you for listening to this episode, for tuning on to 2,000 Crazy Questions. And I hope you remember this episode perfectly. Chris, I want to hand over the spotlight to you. Is there anything you want to plug or tell listeners in general?
No, I mean, if you want to keep in touch with me, you can follow me at chrismcnulty.net. The complicated world of photography and software development and my kids and dogs and family pictures. It's all there and all of its messy glory waiting to be forgotten.
Unless you can't forget it. All right, people, thank you. Let me know by comments, email, Instagram, any questions you'd like to add to the list of 1,000 questions. Please rate the podcast. It helps out a lot. And yeah, thank you. Share this with your friends. Share this with your enemies. Everyone stay safe. Bye.
You can submit question suggestions at me at 1kcrazyquestions@gmail.com or at 1000 Crazy Questions on Instagram. That's 1000 on Instagram.
As always, follow my music producer D800, D-800 at BeatStars or SoundCloud.com.